human-computer interaction courses and psychology courses to help mentor students.
This is where you'll find opportunities to develop a whole range of cutting-edge technologies, such as low-carbon tech, data-driven healthcare, smart cities, and critical infrastructure cybersecurity.
The complete diversity of thought, diversity of opportunity that is available here is holding young people here.
People have different skills, and those complementary skills can create something really, really wonderful.
We're a place that thrives on new ways of doing things, a region that's looking to the future.
It worked for us. I'm sure it'll work for you guys.
The West Midlands. One region, many futures. Home to the fastest growing cluster of tech companies in the UK.
West Midlands is a great place to be based.
We're the only region to have a 5G testbed. We're leading the way, we're innovative.
We've got a lot of development happening in sort of film and gaming and virtual production.
This is the place to embrace opportunities to test and develop the high-growth industries of the future.
We're investing in new state-of-the-art offices to be able to support our expansion.
We have the highest number of companies developing new tech outside of London: 5G, cybersecurity, digital transformation.
Whether it's your finances, your business plan, Steam House allows you access to all of that support.
There is a particular focus on the creative digital industry.
The West Midlands is home to 25% of the UK's game market output. Over 3,000 gaming development professionals with a bank of transferable skills.
Leamington is one of the big hubs for games development in the UK.
When we're recruiting, people see it as a really attractive place to come and live.
Our central location and cost-effective real estate are a winning combination for businesses requiring a strategic hub location away from the costly capital. The workforce is highly skilled. 51,000 tech professionals are based within 45 minutes of central Birmingham.
Our business is all about people. We need people with the right skills. That way, West Midland was a perfect fit for us.
And every year, our universities, with 50 tech-related centres of excellence, add to the talent pool.
We're able to work with the product design courses, the human-computer interaction courses and psychology courses to help mentor students.
This is where you'll find opportunities to develop a whole range of cutting-edge technologies, such as low-carbon tech, data-driven healthcare, smart cities, and critical infrastructure cybersecurity.
The complete diversity of thought, diversity of opportunity that is available here is holding young people here.
People have different skills.
I now want to welcome our colleagues joining us via our YouTube channel, Cyber UK Online. Welcome to Cyber UK Online, live from the ICC in Birmingham. We have a full programme each day with an exciting lineup of speakers. All the plenary sessions will be live streamed to you direct from us here. These consist of both keynotes and panel sessions, and these will also be available to watch back on demand. In addition, we also have some specially selected content from some of our stream sessions. The full agenda can be seen on the Cyber UK website. We will be putting up announcements throughout the day on our social channels to tell you which live streams are coming up. We welcome your interaction with the sessions, so if you have comments, feedback, or want to reach out to others in the event community, please do so using the YouTube channel comments facility and connect with us on X or LinkedIn. The event hashtag is CyberUK24. Now please, can I ask you now to ensure your mobile devices are on silent as we're about to start. I hope you all have a productive and enjoyable event. Thank you.
Welcome to Cyber UK 2024. Please give a very warm welcome to the NCSC's CEO, Felicity Oswald OBE, to open the first plenary session.
Hello, and welcome to Cyber UK 2024. We are delighted to be here at the ICC in Birmingham, in the heart of the West Midlands, and welcome also to those joining us on the YouTube channel. Cyber UK is an important conference for the National Cybersecurity Centre, and we're so grateful that all of you have joined us here for the next couple of days. A particular thanks to our lead sponsors, Google Cloud and Akamai, and to BT, who hosted the fabulous networking drinks last night with the Bhangra dancers, which were amazing. A real reminder of the history and cultural heritage of this part of the UK. So Cyber UK's theme this year is Future Threat, Future Tech, Future Ready. Those three themes will be important to setting out the opportunities and challenges for our sector and for national security in the coming years. There's plenty of content around all of those streams over the next few days, which we really hope you'll engage in and really enjoy. One of the challenges in our sector, though, is about skills and diversity. We do not have enough of either. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome GCHQ's first female director and my boss, Anne Keast-Butler.
Good morning and welcome to Cyber UK 2024. I'm Anne, Director GCHQ, and I'm delighted to be here with you in Birmingham, a UK hub for future tech. This is my first Cyber UK as Director GCHQ, and I wanted to start with a huge thank you to this community for making me so welcome. It's been quite a year. And as the Prime Minister said yesterday, the next few years will be some of the most dangerous and transformational. Putin continues to pursue his senseless and brutal invasion of Ukraine. Iran stokes instability and insecurity in the Middle East. And China is an ever more assertive power. And this all comes at a time of unprecedented acceleration of technology. So this morning, I will share with you the future threats that I see and how GCHQ and our partners can counter them. I will start to explore how we can reap the benefits and manage the risks of future tech, like generative AI. And I will focus on why resilience and partnering, better and faster than ever, are crucial for us to be future ready. Some great speakers, panels, and events will then help us all get further into this over the next 2 days. My starting point is cybercrime. Ransomware continues to be the most acute and pervasive cyber threat for UK businesses and organisations. We're doing everything we can to counter it, working with partners to detect criminal activities and degrade the ransom-as-a-service ecosystem, and produce intelligence that means those involved in ransomware are held to account. Last week, the National Crime Agency unmasked the leader of the Lockbit ransomware group, Russian national Dmitry Korosov, a significant disruption showing that there is no hiding place for cyber criminals, and a brilliant example of international partnerships. Turning next to Russia, we are increasingly concerned about growing links between the Russian intelligence services and proxy groups to conduct cyber attacks, as well as suspected physical surveillance and sabotage operations. Before, Russia simply created the right environments for these groups to operate. But now they are nurturing and inspiring these non-state cyber actors, in some cases seemingly coordinating physical attacks against the West. The Russia threat is acute and globally pervasive. It requires constant vigilance and collaboration to defeat it. We can see that Putin has not given up his maximalist goal of subjugating the population of Ukraine, which is why the UK's support will remain steadfast for as long as it takes, because only through strength and partnership will Putin be deterred. At GCHQ, we continue to strengthen Ukraine's cyber capabilities, to share vital intelligence and expose Putin's malign plans, and his increasing reliance on states such as China and North Korea. And of course, Iran, who continue to supply drones to Russia in return for money and military assistance. On Iran, while we see little in the media about their online capabilities, they remain aggressive in cyberspace. Actors associated with the state have been implicated in attacks against victims in many countries. And Iran is continuing to grow its cyber espionage expertise alongside a range of disruptive and destructive capabilities. Whilst they might not always use the most advanced capabilities to conduct their operations, they should not be underestimated. Russia and Iran pose immediate threats, but China is the epoch-defining challenge. The people of China and the Chinese community overseas have contributed greatly to life here in the UK. But recent events remind us that our country and democratic institutions remain of interest to the Chinese authorities. We want to engage with China where it's mutually beneficial, like tackling climate change, engaging in safe trade, and AI safety. It matters that China joined in signing the Declaration on AI last November at Bletchley Park, the wartime home of GCHQ. But as the Prime Minister said recently, the leadership of the People's Republic of China, the PRC, is increasingly working with others to try and reshape the world. Responding to the scale and complexity of this challenge is GCHQ's top priority. And we now devote more resource to China than any other single mission. Through their coercive and destabilizing actions, the PRC poses a significant risk to international norms and values. In cyberspace, we believe that the PRC's irresponsible actions weaken the security of the internet for all. China has built an advanced set of cyber capabilities and is taking advantage of growing commercial ecosystem of hacking outfits and data brokers at its disposal. China poses a genuine and increasing cyber risk to the UK. The PRC is looking to shape global technology standards in its own favour, seeking to assert its dominance within the next 10 to 15 years. Which is why the UK intelligence community is working alongside our Five Eyes allies and beyond, and also in partnership with industry and academic colleagues, to deter and combat cyber threats from nation states and hostile actors. We have repeatedly called out Chinese cyber adversaries for activities that threaten the security of the UK or target the institutions important to our society, such as the compromise of the UK Electoral Commission. We do this on the basis of GCHQ's cybersecurity expertise within the NCSC, and also our unique intelligence-based insights, which help to contextualize the threat so that you, every citizen, every business, can take action to protect your sensitive data, your systems, and your IP. As the head of a world-leading tech organization and as a mathematician, it's clear that technology and security are more tightly coupled than ever before. Collaboration across academia, the private and public sectors is crucial for developing cutting-edge science and technology solutions for national security. To quote the Foreign Secretary who spoke at NCSC's headquarters in London last week, we need to forge partnerships to out-cooperate and out-innovate our adversaries. Because the world of communications is at a pivot point. Quantum engineering is reshaping the future of computing. The next generation of advanced telecoms will make the world a global cloud of interconnectivity. And right now, there are almost 10,000 satellites orbiting above us. which places new demands on UK intelligence community for security and resilience. This was unimaginable a decade ago. And it's clear that the technological transformation of the next decade will far exceed those of the last. This is most evident with generative AI. These powerful systems are advancing at an exponential rate, outpacing the expectations of even those who lead their development. When it comes to AI at GCHQ, we're focused on three things. Using our unique expertise to help ensure security and safety are hardwired into AI development. Understanding how our adversaries are using or plan to use AI to cause harm. And exploring how AI can help enhance our capabilities, make us better at keeping the country safe. We're using AI across all parts of the intelligence and security cycle, in support of our people and in responsible and ethical ways. We're leveraging AI advancements to bolster our protection against cyber threats. And we're doing all of that as child sexual offenders are exploiting AI to create increasingly severe material. Fraudsters are using AI to draft convincing phishing emails, and others are using AI to enhance ransomware, infiltrate systems, spread disinformation, and erode trust in democratic institutions. Which is why we're working with partners to identify and disrupt criminals abroad, using our intelligence to prevent many millions of pounds of fraud here in the UK, and deploying cyber operations to remove child sexual abuse material. Together, we stand as a robust line of defense against the misuse of AI. And all of this comes in the year of elections, with 64 nations taking to the polls. I am proud that GCHQ is playing its part in the UK's Defending Democracy Task Force and working with partners to ensure safe and secure elections. Of course, none of our successes are possible without the best people, empowered and equipped with technology to help solve seemingly impossible challenges. This needs the right mix of minds. I'm the 17th director of GCHQ, but I'm also the first woman to hold this role in our 105-year history. You don't need to be a mathematician to be surprised by those numbers. And all of us in the cyber industry, everyone in this room, has a part to play in building a diverse workforce. We need to attract more talent from ethnic minority backgrounds. And we need more women in science, technology, engineering, and maths, so that we are better at solving the seemingly impossible, so that cybersecurity can work for everyone, and so that we are ready for the future. Looking around the room today, how are we doing? Alongside creating that right mix of minds, what else can we do to manage evolving threats in the face of technological change? I see three ingredients: resilience, partnerships, and speed. Firstly, resilience. The complex set of infrastructure that support our communications, our utilities, our supply chains is fragile, vulnerable to disruption. From war in Ukraine to destabilizing action in the Red Sea, we have all felt the economic shockwaves of conflict. We need to work together to make our systems more resilient to threats, criminal or nation state. We need to protect our sensitive data from falling into the wrong hands. True resilience is something in which we all have a stake, and good cybersecurity matters more than ever. The NCSC plays a leading role in improving this resilience, but we cannot do it alone. It must be a CEO and a boardroom priority, a collaborative effort between government and the private sector, especially where UK critical infrastructure is privately owned. And that brings me on to partnerships. We need to work together, faster and ever more effectively. In a moment, you'll hear from Harry Coco, US Cyber Director, and Heather Atkins, Head of Google's Office of Cybersecurity Resilience. Just two fantastic speakers that showcase the importance of collaboration with business and the strength of our international partnerships. Our partnerships are our competitive edge. They are long-standing, steadfast, built on liberal values, freedom and innovation. But we now need to increase our speed in matching problems with technological solutions and for engaging with all of you on tech development and scaling innovation effectively. This has never been so important. Our future tech advantage rests on what we as a community do next. Thank you for playing your part.
Thank you, Anne. Sharing intelligence, innovations, and solutions to mutual challenges is how we will stay ahead of our adversaries. If we are to outcompete them, we must do so together, and that is our message to you. It seems only right to begin my Cyber UK speech by talking about future tech. New technologies offer us significant opportunities to address some of humanity's most pressing challenges. AI is being used successfully in healthcare. Quantum computers are improving our climate modelling. We at the NCSC are optimistic that the net benefit of AI for cybersecurity will far outstretch any adversary's gain in terms of their offensive capability, whether that's through fixing code or detecting intrusions. But we should not sit on our laurels. The AI Safety Summit at Bletchley in November brought together industry, academia, and governments for the first time to find a unified approach to developing safe and secure AI. Next week, we'll see the next chapter of that discussion in Seoul. I wish our Korean colleagues all the best for that important event. I am often asked, why is the National Cybersecurity Centre part of GCHQ? The answer is a clear one. The insights we have on our adversaries and the unique skills and depth of technology expertise that come with intelligence work provide a unique combination that give us a genuine edge. Code making and code breaking are as relevant today and as intertwined as they ever were. After all, despite the famous work at Bletchley Hut 8, Alan Turing spent more of his career in code making than code breaking. And cryptography and cryptology remain at the heart of so much of cybersecurity, though it is sometimes forgotten in our sector. Teams across NCSC work with many of you in this space, for example, producing cryptographic hardware and keys that help keep government secrets secret. But cryptography is also crucial to our future. Our exceptionally skilled colleagues continue to be instrumental in safeguarding critical national systems against formidable future quantum computers. Important work is underway as I speak to finalise post-quantum cryptography algorithms. This is vital to the long-term security of internet communications. Their rollout, configuration, and integration into real-world systems will be an essential part of this industry's work. I'm excited that within the Future Tech stream, we have a panel discussion on this on Wednesday with experts from industry and academia discussing some of the challenges and the opportunities. Whilst technology evolves at an extraordinary pace, the tectonic plates of the threats against the UK and our allies are also shifting. As the Foreign Secretary Lord Cameron said during his visit to the NCSC last week, the UK and our allies must make security a priority. The NCSC, as the nation's technical authority on cybersecurity, judges that Russia, China, Iran, and the DPRK continue to pose the greatest risk to the UK and our allies. Russia's illegal war in Ukraine continues. Russia's malign cyber activity persists. But Ukrainian resilience remains robust, and we are delighted to have Ukrainian colleagues with us today to hear firsthand how they are weathering those challenges. The conflict in Gaza, following Hamas's attack in October last year, risks further regional spillover. And although cyberspace has not been the primary battlefield in these conflicts, we have seen how cyber can be used alongside kinetic warfare. We also shouldn't forget the threat from cybercrime, which remains stubbornly high. Ransomware continues to be the biggest day-to-day cybersecurity threat to most UK organisations. In recent months, law enforcement has dramatically reduced the global threat from ransomware by disrupting Lockbit's activities, and just last week, unmasking and sanctioning one of its Russia-based leaders. This is really important because victims can suffer significant consequences. It affects their day-to-day business functions, their reputations, and their finances. We will hear tomorrow from Sir Rowley Keating, CEO of the British Library, about the library's impressive response to a cyber attack. The staff and leadership are to be commended for the way they handled the incident and for their decision not to pay the ransom. I encourage you to read their public report about the attack, its impact, and how they recovered their services. It reminds us that all businesses must look at cybersecurity as an integral part of their organisational risk management. This can be done in a number of ways. Gaining a Cyber Essentials certificate is a major step in making organisations more resilient. Those that have done so are 92% less likely to make an insurance claim. Nevertheless, cyber insurance is an added incentive for organisations to implement security controls and resilience measures. And that's why I'm delighted to announce that we are publishing today guidance that we hope will reduce the number of ransoms being paid by UK ransomware victims. This is being done in collaboration with the Association of British Insurers, the International Underwriting Association, and the British Insurance Brokers Association. It will empower organisations to make informed decisions when they are faced with a ransom demand, and ultimately help minimise the disruption and the cost of an incident. It is a dangerous misconception that paying a ransom guarantees the end of an incident. It doesn't. And every ransom paid provides incentives for criminals to expand their activities. As a citizen or a consumer of a company's services, I don't want organisations that I trust to be doing the equivalent of leaving a bag full of used banknotes in a dark alley. That's why today's agreement with the insurance sector is so important. And before I finish, I want to build upon the points Anne has just made about China. As the Prime Minister has said, China poses a systemic challenge to our values and interests, a challenge that grows more acute as the country moves towards even greater authoritarianism. This challenge is clear and pronounced in cyberspace, where the Communist Party's capability is vast in scale and sophistication. A growing commercial ecosystem of capable hacking outfits and data brokers is available at its disposal, and in recent years, the Chinese authorities have introduced a new law requiring the discovery of security vulnerabilities to be provided to the government as a priority, and at risk of severe penalty. This should worry all of us. It goes against our long-held principles of transparency and accountability. And it speaks directly to the real-world risks we have highlighted before. The US, UK, and allies have raised the alarm repeatedly about activity by the Volt Typhoon group, which could be laying the groundwork for disruptive and destructive cyber attacks. This is a clear warning about China's intent to hold essential networks at risk. And it is a warning that providers of essential services in the UK cannot afford to ignore. We are past the point of running unsupported systems. It is not tenable. Business leaders and network defenders must take action to make the critical systems more secure across our economy. Investment in cybersecurity after the event has little value. China is certainly not treating security as an extra, and neither should we. So, how do we become future ready in a world where our systems grow more intricate and hostile actors are attempting to cripple our critical sectors? The answer is, and must be, collaboration with our allies internationally and between government and industry. Because in the face of such a challenge, it is through the strength of our partnerships that we can be most effective in defending against the threats we face. Bolstering baseline cybersecurity isn't enough. We must revolutionize our defenses by sharing the burden more effectively, leveraging our collective knowledge, and where we need to, taking swift action. Initiatives like the Cyber Resilience Audit Scheme, which we are launching today, and NCSC's own cyber assessment framework will provide a more accurate picture of sector and national level cyber resilience. As Anne said, our collaborations across government, industry, academia, and with like-minded countries around the world are central to our collective success. And that's what Cyber UK is all about. I wish you 2 inspiring days here in Birmingham, where you can forge the partnerships we all need to help keep our nations safe online. Thank you. I'd now like to welcome Harry Coker from the White House to give his international keynote. Harry.
Thank you, Anne and Felicity. I am grateful to be here, even though I was rudely greeted at the airport by the Aston Villa and Birmingham City fans. They must have noticed my lapel pin. Yes, I am a West Ham supporter. But today I want to share my thoughts briefly on just how integral cyber issues are to economic prosperity, geopolitical security, and scientific innovation. Earlier this month, the United States State Department released a new international strategy promoting an innovative, secure, and rights-respecting vision for international cyberspace. Advancing digital solidarity is key to achieving this vision, recognizing that threats are growing more worrisome every day. One example of the growing threat in cyberspace comes from Ukraine. Since Russia's invasion in 2022, Ukraine's cyber defenders have successfully defended their country's critical infrastructure from Russia's cyber attacks. Ukrainian cybersecurity experts have demonstrated for all of us how to take on a world-class cyber power and win. However, the Russian cyber threat has changed. Since 2022, Russia has recruited new cyber operators, deepened their understanding of Ukraine's new cloud infrastructure, and focused their efforts on intercepting Ukrainian communications and government secrets that have been exploited to produce battlefield success. The Russian cyber threat in 2024 marks a new standard of aggression, persistence, and operational agility. For Ukraine, improving the security of networks and communications will be fundamental to their battlefield success. Last week, I met with Anton Demakin, Deputy Foreign Minister of Ukraine and Chief Digital Transformation Officer Yegor Dubinsky, to let them know that the White House is putting a priority on Ukraine achieving their goals. But the cyber threat landscape is evolving beyond the battlefield. I recently had the chance to speak with leaders of America's cybersecurity companies when I was at the RSA conference in San Francisco, and they told us about what they're seeing on a day-to-day basis. The People's Republic of China hackers are working on circumventing our defenses and are targeting our interests at an unprecedented scale. The PRC's People Liberation Army has invested tremendous resources in building up their cyber program, and they are doing this for one reason: to hold critical infrastructure at risk in a time of global competition. In a crisis or conflict scenario, China would use their pre-positioned cyber capabilities to wreak havoc on civilian critical infrastructure to deter U.S. mobility. We are determined not to let that happen. The U.S. government has already identified and disrupted the PLA's efforts to pre-position on our critical infrastructure networks, and we're going to keep pushing back. But make no mistake, this is a global challenge. China's ambitions to use its cyber power coercively extend far beyond the United States. Pushing back this challenge will require our collective strength, focus, and determination, characteristics that I'm told Brummies hold in spades. Before I conclude, I'd like to leave you with one more thought. Cyber resilience is a strategic advantage. Cybersecurity is a fundamental component of our most pressing national priorities, and we must ensure that the full advantage of proactive cyber defenses are not viewed in a vacuum as an isolated technical issue. Instead, as we listen today, and as we head home to carry forth the knowledge from these action-provoking conversations, I ask that all of us recognize the threats from cyber actually imperil our greatest common ambitions. This morning we'll have a great panel, and I'm as eager as you are to hear their thoughts. But I just want to leave you with, while the proactive measures we can take now will pay untold dividends, we must plan and we must respond. Digital solidarity. We must do it accordingly. Thank you.
For our first panel, responding to an evolving threat picture, please welcome back NCSC's CEO, Felicity Oswald, OBE.
Harry, thank you so much for that. Fantastic to have you here, and thank you for sharing your thoughts. I'm really pleased today to kick off our first panel discussion, and it's a real esteemed panel I have lined up here. So let me briefly introduce each person. I suspect most of them don't need much introduction to this community. So Harry Coker, who you've just heard from, the National Cyber Director at the White House. Claudia Plattner. Claudia is President of the Federal Office of Information Security, also known as BSI in Germany. Thank you, Claudia. You're very welcome to be here. Next, we have Keiichi Ichikawa, Assistant Chief Cabinet Secretary and Deputy National Security Advisor in the Cabinet Secretariat of Japan. Ichikawa-san, you're very welcome to be here. Thanks so much. Next along, Heather Adkins, apologies, Heather, VP for Security Engineering and the head of the Office of Cybersecurity Resilience at Google. Thank you so much. And finally, we have, but very much last but not least, Matt Collins, a long-term colleague of mine. Matt is our Deputy National Security Advisor here in the UK, based in our Cabinet Office. Thank you, Matt. You're very welcome to be here. So can I first of all have a warm welcome for my panel, please? So, blimey, it has been a big year in cybersecurity. Could I kick off by asking you each to recall a key moment or an issue that you've been grappling with or thinking about as an important one in the last 12 months or so? Harry, should we start with you?
Certainly. There's been so much that's happened over the last year, but just to keep it to your guidance, I'll talk to the 2024 Cybersecurity Posture Report of the United States that we transmitted last week to the President and to the U.S. Congress. It's seminal because it continues to make the public aware of the cyber threats that we are all facing. It was a report on the U.S. cybersecurity posture, but the trends that were noted in that report are applicable to all of us and our nations. Number one, our critical infrastructure is at increasing risk to cyber threats. Secondly, cyber crime, to include ransomware, is increasing. Third, there is increasing risk to our supply chain that all of us should be concerned about. And then AI is a technology with positive aspects and with challenges, the first of which is in the hand of publics like no other technology has been. So those are cyber threats that we put out there for the public to be aware of. And the reason I'm raising this as a significant issue is because too many of us view cyber almost as an invisible threat. We may not see it and feel it every day, but it is there looming. And so the opportunity to raise public awareness is a key event for me.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Claudia, how about for you? You've been in post for 12 months, or just about,
Exactly, a little less than 12 months, 11 almost. I think everything you've just said, Harry, concerns us as well. But there's been one incident that I would like to mention, because it may not have been the most severe, most critical, but I think it raised a lot of awareness in the public's eyes. And there was a supply chain attack, classical supply chain attack. So an IT supplier who was serving cities and villages in North Rhine-Westphalia, so municipal services. And what we saw there was that all of a sudden, 72 different communities were basically cut off from services. And that means you could not get married anymore. So if you wanted to, you had to basically move to, or really go to another city. And while that may sound funny, it's not. I'm a romantic, so it's certainly not. But nonetheless, it made people very much aware. And there were people carrying around boxes full of applications for vehicle registrations. And that's the kind of impact it can have. And that is all of a sudden very personal. It's not abstract. It's nothing on the news, as in, the geopolitical situation. No, it's personal. It's happening right here. And this is what you see. And if you scale that up, and it's perfectly possible to scale that up, you can imagine the impact it would have if we were to hit somewhere even more severe.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. Ichikawa-san,
yes.
How about for you?
Oh, yes. First of all, I would like to share with you what's happening in Japan, especially after we issue the national security strategy back in December 2022. We doubled the effort to strengthen the government, their cyber security capability, including introducing active cyber defense. I think the situation in Japan also is getting harder and harder. Let me share with you some instances which took place last year in Japan. The first is that ransomware attack against Nagoya port. Nagoya seaport is one of the largest seaports in Japan. That is located very close to the headquarters of Toyota automaker. That tells something. And after the attack, the container terminal operation was suspended. It was forced to be suspended because of the attack. And that incident reminds us, that incident was a sort of wake-up call for Japan to realize even Japan cannot escape from the cyber attack against critical infrastructure. And subsequently, in November, it was announced that another cyber attack took place against JAXA, which is Japan's aerospace agency. When we have witnessed the older cyber incidents taking place globally, I think a sea change is rapidly underway in the cyberspace. And traditionally, it is said that China they conduct their cyber attack for stealing technology, data, and information, while Russia conducted to aim at the fulfilling the military and political purposes. But nowadays, the cyber attack against the critical infrastructure by state-sponsored actors gets more attention in terms of national security. That big change. And furthermore, as two of you already mentioned, the detection and response to the cyber attack has become increasingly difficult and challenging due to more sophisticated the technology and the tactics, including livings of the land, the techniques, so and so. In order to respond to these difficult challenges, it is important both national and business leaders need to enhance shared awareness of the cybersecurity. We must, based on that, we must strengthen public-private partnership. We must best utilize the cutting-edge technologies like AI and quantum. We must reinforce international cooperation among allies and like-minded countries. So I think in that sense, Cyber UK, this kind of the seminar international conference where both national business people get together has become more relevant and important than ever.
Thank you. And the examples both you and Claudia have given have been ones of real-world impacts. And I think that's something we're increasingly thoughtful about in governments. How does it look from an industry perspective? Heather, we've put you on you're the industry voice today. Thank you so much for that.
With my industry hat on. So I've been doing cybersecurity for over 25 years, before we called it cybersecurity. And I would say the past 12 months have been the most complex that I've ever seen. But I say that every year. It is an increasing speed, pace, complexity. A few incidents really stand out for me. Felicity, you mentioned the British Library incident. And if I think about their mission, organize all the world's information and make sure you can get to it in a library, not so dissimilar from the mission at Google. The idea that we could not restore access to knowledge quickly, I think, is a concern. There's a very contrasting incident that, for some reason, is not getting the same level of attention in 2024 that it would have in 2014. And that's the backdoor of the XZ software project, the open source software project, which, had it happened a decade ago, would have had captured our attention for months and quarters on end. It got a week of airplay in the press, and we have all moved on because every day there is something new in the news. And I think how I would characterize the last 12 months is that there's so much going on now, so much that we can see, that actually no professional in the field can understand the full landscape of what's happening now every day. I used to get up and read the news. It would take me 15 minutes to get through the cyber news in the morning. Now I check it 3 times a day, and at the end of the day, there's still something I haven't heard about. This tells me that we are probably seeing a little bit of numbness, if you will. We've become a little bit numb. There's a really famous cybersecurity podcaster who was commenting recently that there's just so much ransomware that he doesn't bother to report on it anymore, right? And that, to me, I think we need to be thinking a little bit about our constant vigilance in these kinds of situations so we don't lose sight of things. You know?
Thank you, Heather. Matt was nodding through lots of that. Matt, what's the last 12 months held for you?
So there's been some great moments. In the UK, the attribution of APT31, the Lockbit disruption, obviously all of that is working with a number of partners. There have been great moments where the community have come together. The counter-ransomware initiative, I know there's a side event during the couple of days this week. The Pall Mall process with our French colleagues on cyber proliferation, the AI Safety Summit in Bletchley Park. But my main takeaway builds on what Heather was just saying, and it's a slightly glass half empty takeaway, I'm afraid, Felicity, and that is that the threat continues to outstrip our efforts to tackle them. And I think that we need to admit that, and I think we need to calibrate our response accordingly.
Well, there'll probably be a bit of a sense of doom through some of this today, but let's also try and bring some optimism. My parents called me Felicity for a reason, but I will do my best on that. Thank you, Matt, very much. Really grateful for you for highlighting some of the important international collaborations and policy conversations that will set us up for success in the future. I'll come to Ichikawa-san next. My question is about ideas. So why we do Cyber UK and so many of these important gatherings is to share those innovations with one another, those radical or disruptive ideas, which I would love to hear from everyone here what their thoughts are over the next few days. But what are one or two of the ideas that you're thinking about at the moment or you're keen to hear more about while you're at Cyber UK?
Yeah, I have basically two things in this regard. The one is the part of the Japanese effort to strengthen the cyber capability. We will introduce the protective DNS, as well as the attack surface management, at least by next March. And but in order to make it really effective, the information and intelligence sharing is imperative among like-minded countries and allies. So if the information regarding the malicious domains or vulnerabilities of our own, the systems among with allies and like-minded countries, we will jointly defend our systems more effectively, more proper manner. That is one thing. And also, as we are making an effort to catch up, with other allies and like-minded countries in cyberspace, there are a lot of things we can learn from the experience of our friendly countries, so like UK or US. In case of US, NCSC is a very good example for us. And so we pay a lot of attention to the progress made in response, protective measures, as well as the response assistance that NCSC provides to private sectors. And also we pay attention to the location of the London office of NCSC, far away from the Cheltenham. And that is really suggestive for us to think about our system to be built. And there are some others in UK, the system. For example, Industry 100 that promotes the collaboration with the skilled and diverse professionals in the UK UK companies. And also Cyber Essentials program scheme. That is another one that boosts up cooperative cyber security. And in case of US, we pay a lot of attention to the cyber-centric programs, which facilitate the collaboration between CISA and critical infrastructure in terms of improving the cybersecurity visibility for detecting malicious activities. And so, based on the other countries' experience scheme, we would like to come up with the most effective system of Japan. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your kind words about NCSC. The scaling of our defences is something we're all going to grapple with, whether it's industry or governments. And so keen to hear more thoughts from anyone else. If anyone wants to jump in, feel free. I'll also move on. So indicate, folks, if you want to come in on with thoughts. Claudia, my next question is for you. We have talked a bit this morning about the threat landscape. Harry shared his thoughts. Anne and I gave a bit of a UK perspective. Given your last year leading BSI, how do you see the cyber threats changing for Germany during that period, and where might they go from here?
If you don't mind, I would like to step back a little bit further beyond the 1-year boundary. So I do remember a time when the internet was all about sharing. And I do remember a time when we had network protocols or routing protocols that really were about exchanging information. They were not built with security in mind, which is something we pay a price for today. So something has severely changed from basically it's there for everyone to share and do something good with it. We're now at a major part being misused, really. And that is something fundamental that has changed. And it's not just about exchanging information, doing business, it's also about the cultural way of dealing or of interacting on the internet, in the network. We used to be all about, let's exchange views. These days, it's very much about taking influence. It's very much about disinformation. It's very much about discrediting people. So something fundamental has changed. And I do remember the good old times. There's always good old times, of course. But something fundamental has changed, and we need to face those threats. And we have to grow into this new spirit, if you will. I mean, we've been at it for, I don't know, more than 10 years, 15 years. So we do know something is coming. But with the pace it's picking up, and this is something I've also seen over the course of the last year, I think that the most important point for us is we need to adapt to this new situation in terms of scaling up and adjusting to the speed of really the necessity of acting that we're facing today. And as far as I'm concerned, this is the most important learning. And the immediate action that really has to stem from it is we need to go into automation. We need to make sure that we have all the right tools in place. We will not be able to take action, the good old-fashioned way with checklists. And we need to find technology answers for this. So if internet protocols, if network protocols are broken, we need to go to the source of it and fix that, also from a technology point of view. And it's a huge variety of things we have to do. You've just published another version of your implementation plan, your implementation initiatives. That's the kind of thing we need to do, take action. And I think the technology part of it will be very, very important.
Yeah, please do, Harry.
So the evolving threat, which is going to continue to evolve. Where cybersecurity is certainly our focal point, we still need to have an affirmative vision for our digital foundation. We need to operate on that foundation on our terms. We need to dictate the terms as opposed to letting our adversaries dictate how we operate on that digital foundation. It's key that we all realize, yes, that digital foundation is key to our national security, but it's also key to our economic prosperity. So cybersecurity needs to be there, but we need to be bold in how we implement that, and we need cyber resilience. We need to operate through these evolving threats. They're not going away. Some will be successful, but we need to maintain our operational posture.
Thank you, Harry. I'm seeing lots of nods. My aim for this session is to find one thing the panel disagree on during the process. So we may not achieve that because consensus building is a good thing at international collaborative events as well. But no, I think everyone's very much agreed that given the pace of change, we do need to work out how we change gear as well as a system. Harry, I'm actually coming to you next. So you've talked already about China and obviously the Volt Typhoon threat. How do you see, sorry, apologies. How do you see the significance of Volt Typhoon and the advisories that we've given out, and how do we move on from there? What's the next steps?
It's significant on a number of fronts. I touched on public awareness initially, and I was delighted, frankly, when myself and my colleagues, Director of FBI, Ray, Director of CISA, Easterling, and then Director, NSA, and Commander of Cyber Command, General Nakasone, were called to testify before the U.S. House of Representatives Subcommittee on PRC threat to our critical infrastructure. And it was that day that Director Ray announced the takedown of a Chinese obfuscation network that was used to place U.S. critical infrastructure not just at risk, but at unacceptable risk. Prior to that time, it was primarily espionage that we would see operating in cyberspace, although cybercrime and financial gain is certainly there and moving up. But this was the first time that we saw an entity position itself into our critical infrastructure for the clear intent to disrupt our ability to mobilize in the case of need. We all appreciate global competition, and we want to manage that competition. We want to avoid crisis, and we certainly want to avoid conflict, but nevertheless, we have to be prepared for crisis and conflict while we manage that competition. So again, back to public awareness. Not just the American public needs to know this, but all of us need to know that nation states and other malicious actors are placing us at unacceptable risk, not just for traditional espionage or financial gain, but to impact a nation's ability to respond. We need to recognize that threat is not going to diminish. So what do we do about it? Again, cybersecurity, cyber resilience, and taking an affirmative vision, but also Secretary of State Blinken and our good friend Ambassador Nate Fick recently visited China and raised that issue with the Chinese government. So we will continue to be prepared to use all instruments of national power and make clear that unacceptable risk means just that, it's unacceptable.
Thank you. I think drawing those lines between espionage and things that are very different and in a totally different class, particularly where they impact our critical sectors, is absolutely something we need to all be landing with our communities. And for me and for NCSC, it's got to be about not just ministers or government officials understanding that, but actually it's the boardrooms of our critical sectors too, and how we get that message through is so important.
Indeed. And so back to all of us, that's one of the great things about the recent released U.S. State Department International Cyber Strategy. That phrase, digital solidarity, means all of us, like-minded nations, working together to combat these threats, recognizing that we are all at risk, not just any one nation. So we've got to do that. Another key point that I'll continue to emphasize. Previously, we would talk about whole of government efforts. Then I've been real pleased. The U.S. government recognizes that we don't succeed in cybersecurity without our private sector partners. They are essential. So that makes it whole of nation, if you will. But I've been advancing, and it's consistent with digital solidarity. It is whole of nations. We all need each other to put us in the right place with regards to cybersecurity, and again, having that digital foundation that all of us can use for good.
Thank you. Heather, over to you. One of the things we're talking about here, of course, is the individual state actors and as well the complexity and pace and scale. How are our organisations at responding and innovating at this pace? I'm hoping that we can learn from industry at how to be more agile across the whole of the system.
So I would say 3 areas. First and foremost, we have to deal with the fact that we built a broken internet, that it was not designed to be secure from the beginning. And so it's very important, and industry is very committed to this, is in alliances, in industry coalitions, such as the FIDO Alliance, going back and actually fixing fundamental classes of problems. The FIDO Alliance, for example, trying to deprecate passwords, which we've had since the 1960s, and we knew it was a bad idea then, and yet we still have them. Memory safety is another. The reason why our critical infrastructure is compromised is it's very difficult to manage it at scale, given how it was built. So we have to go back to the drawing board. So that's something industry is very focused on at the moment. And really, really pleased to see in the United States, we've just signed the CISA Secure by Design Pledge. 68 companies have signed on board so far. with this in mind, right? And the idea is we come to the table as an industry, take on some of the burden on security, build better platforms. Secondly, we need to deal with the fact that we have locked in the brain trust of cybersecurity professionals to doing toilsome, repeatable work that takes them away from working on strategic issues and collaboration. And so we're all invested in automation. We have been for about a decade. And now we have a new tool with generative AI that we think actually will flip the table in our favor. Just to give you a few stats, we've done some early work, and we've been able to free up the time of SOC analysts by 53% using generative AI to do summarization, correlation, drafting reports, et cetera. So you essentially double the size of your SOC if we can get that right, which is very important. Same thing with things like malware analysis. We just released some studies we did on using generative AI to do malware reversing, stuff that takes one person a week, 2 weeks to pick apart. We can now do in 30 or 40 seconds as a first pass, which is pretty remarkable. And you can imagine all of the talent we have trapped doing these kinds of jobs, and it's such a waste of resources in my view. So I think an industry, we're innovating there and we're going to double down. I think third is the partnership. And it's okay for a Google or an Amazon or a Microsoft to invent all this stuff, but if we're the only ones using it, it's not very helpful. So one of the things we are committed to doing at Google is putting things back in the platform, open sourcing a lot of things, and being transparent about how we are doing things, which will allow other people to adopt methodologies as well as technology. We believe that putting all of this back into platforms will help small to medium-sized businesses, hospitals, schools, et cetera, really level up in the face of such a complex threat landscape that just, to be fair, that they don't have time to reason about, let alone, in so many cases, the expertise to be able to do so. So this is how the industry is thinking about this in these three areas. And I think I'm actually quite an optimist that it will help quite a bit.
Fantastic, thank you. What amazing statistics those are from the SOC. I do wonder whether government is really harnessing the power of industry on this. Has anyone got thoughts on how are we doing? What grade would you give us in terms of governments really benefiting from the expertise of industry? Anyone brave enough to give me a grade?
Well, I'll give you a comment.
Okay.
I'll be subjective. And I'm glad Heather mentioned memory safety. We issued a technical report earlier this year on memory-safe programming languages and software metrology. Building blocks is the name of the report. But in that report, it talked about how many vulnerabilities we have because we use, in this broken foundation, non-memory safe programming languages. Many legacy systems are built on non-memory safe programming languages. I found it fascinating. Our team put that report together, and this has been a known vulnerability for years. But for whatever reason, we haven't been able to convince ourselves to transition to memory-safe programming languages at scale. So a significant vulnerability still exists. We need to figure out how to, at scale, do some level of addressing the legacy code that's not memory safe. That's a vulnerability that's there. So I'm glad you mentioned that. That's a challenge area for us. Right now, we don't have a good grade, okay? Well, since you asked, we don't have a passing grade on that vulnerability.
Let me be clear. I don't think anybody quite yet has a passing grade on that one, so you're okay. But I do think, it's on us as industry in partnership with academia and government to start to build those solutions. I think large language models offer a hope, but believe it or not, if you ask the large language model to rewrite some unsafe code into safe code, it's very happy to replicate all the bugs in the new code as well. So we have some fine tuning to do on that. But
thank you. I'm glad I'm pushing you a little bit. This is good. This is good, guys. Matt, we're going to come to you. As Deputy National Security Advisor, you do more than just cyber. You worry about a much broader range of risks. And we can't, as a cyber security community, think about cyber in a vacuum or in isolation. How do you see the interaction between cyber and the other risks in your portfolio?
So you're asking me all the questions which get to project a sense of doom, just threats, risks, problems. Yep. I'll just answer your previous question. So obviously please. The UK encouraged a whole of society approach in our 2021 cyber strategy. There are excellent examples of that collaboration, and the work of the NCSC is facilitating that. However, it isn't kind of routine as it needs to be, and we create walls, I feel, between government, between industry, academia, and beyond, which don't help us counter the threats in exactly the way that we need to, and the more that we can break down some of those barriers, the better. In terms of the broader threat, again, it's hard to see the cyber threat distinct from the physical threat as distinct from economic coercion. And if you've just been following the press in the UK over the last 7 days, you can see the interlinkages with a cyber attack on the payroll system at MOD. There's been attacks on arson attacks on supplies of satellites to Ukraine, which is going through the court system but has a state link. And just yesterday, there was charges around espionage and transnational repression in the United Kingdom, again linked to a state-based actor. The important thing from a UK perspective, and for all of our like-minded partners, is to make sure that we're seeing the totality of the threat. We're seeing the totality of the vulnerabilities, and we're not just over-focusing on one element, fixing that only to see under the whack-a-mole scenario something else pop up elsewhere. One of the benefits that we have of the NCSC, the National Protective Security Authority, and other agencies providing advice to industry, to private citizens on the steps that they can take to improve resilience, and making sure that we're seeing that connectivity between the physical threats and the cyber threats. Anne mentioned in her opening remarks the work of the Defending Democracy Task Force, and very much getting after those threats as well as the disinformation threats is part of our approach there. Again, on economic security, all of the work that we're doing on outbound investment, looking at foreign direct investment, all of the work that we're doing around securing supply chain vulnerabilities, all of that is to make sure that UK businesses are able to prosper. And then we get to the work on artificial intelligence, where we need to see both the threats and the risks from artificial intelligence, as well as the opportunities, as Heather remarked on before. But we actually have to safeguard artificial intelligence itself, and so it's built in a secure environment. And again, seeing the totality of the threat and making sure that we're taking steps to mitigate those threats is important.
Thank you, Matt. As some colleagues know, I was in a different seat in the NCSC leadership team back in 2016 when we stood up, and a colleague who I won't name somewhere else in the national security system, I remember them saying to me, but Felicity, cyber is only a vector. And I must admit, my first thought went to that slightly weird orange dress superhero that's called Vector, so it's probably a niche reference for someone that's watched too much Disney or Pixar movies, but it's a weird superhero called Vector. Anyway, so there's no laugh, that's clearly really niche. But my second thought was, that's both true and false at the same time. So cyber is only a vector for bad actors, but it's so much more complicated that you also have to be able to see it in its own lane. And I think our ability to navigate the complexity of that sort of true and false at the same time is so important for our community to be able to do. Has anyone else thoughts on how we do that?
Well,
Thank you,
It's
Harry.
a vector to many avenues. And one of the challenges that we have is that some parts of the public sector and some parts of the private sector view cybersecurity as an inconvenience. as opposed to the imperative that it is. We often get focused on what I'll call our main lines of business. I have to build this widget, or I have to put out this policy, and we think that is what counts. And it may be a measure of effectiveness, but we don't get there unless we have cybersecurity. It's just challenging to appreciate any line of business that does not depend on cybersecurity. Last Monday, we had a convening at the White House on workforce issues, but we had industries from shipping to transportation to education, labor unions, and the common thread across all of them was they needed more cyber professionals because their main line of business was dependent on cybersecurity. And so, and that's something, that's a misnomer that we have to continue to press forward, public and private sector, that cybersecurity is an imperative, not an inconvenience. And of note, when Secretary Blinken did transmit his new international cyber strategy last week, he talked about how cyber has gone from being relevant to being a centrality. And that's a phrase that stuck with me. It's more than relevant. It's central to what we do and how we live.
Yeah. Thank you. So we've talked a lot about partnership, and it's absolutely coming out as a theme across the next couple of days, I think, in many of our panels. Building coalitions that take us to that next gear is so important. And I'm really thrilled that at Cyber UK this year, we have more countries than we think we've ever had before, and we believe there's representatives from 6 continents, which is incredible. And that represents how we can absolutely work more globally. But what are the other coalitions that we need to require ourselves to build? And do we need to push ourselves out of our comfort zone in terms of the conversations we have? Who wants to kick me off? I'm hoping you'll all have an answer on this one. I can Claudia,
start.
Thank you.
I think getting out of the comfort zone is very, very important. I'm coming from mainland Europe, if you will. So Germany and the rest of Europe is very much still on the regulation path of solving problems, and I think it's an essential part. So I'm not opposed to it, not at all. Even though I'm in the UK, I hope you'll forgive me. I think it is an important part because there's 2 important pieces of regulation which will help us. One of them is really going into making sure that the organizations protect themselves, and they are obliged to do so. And on the other hand, you mentioned the pledge. You mentioned the pledge, right? The pledge that you've signed with CISA. And that's the other part where we basically say the producers of everything software-based basically have to take responsibility for their products throughout the life cycle of the product. And I think those 2 pieces of regulation are very important. And they will help us. But at the end of the day, we will also have to find the right way of building partnerships, and that is something we're not comfortable with, so this is where we get off the couch. We have to build the right partnerships that help us take big steps forward. All those regulations are, piece by piece, by piece by piece, and that's good. We need to do this. No objection from my side. But on the other hand, we're facing essential problems, as you've just said, basically. The internet itself is broken. It's built on foundations which are not fit for purpose right now. So we need to go back really to the origins and correct what has not worked before. And us being policymakers, I mean, I'm working in a public institution. For us, this is something new, working together with industry in order to get these things right. And here we have to step out of our comfort zone, but we need to get those public-private partnerships working, because as public institutions, we will not be able to manage it. We won't manage. So therefore, we need those partnerships in order to get us moving. And this is, at least for mainland Europe, a little bit out of our comfort zone, I have to say.
Thank you, Claudia. Heather.
I think I always like to think back to when we invented automobiles. And if you have ever been to a museum on transportation, there's a great one in London. there were 30 ways to start the car. They didn't have windshields, no seat belts. They were very unsafe. And actually, it took a long time for the automotive industry to converge on a platform such that the car more or less works the same no matter who manufactures it. And the seat belt, which is probably the most obvious safety device and simple in the vehicle, in the US wasn't regulated until the 70s, I think. I grew up driving around in a car with no seatbelt on, which I can't imagine now. It took all of those years, 70 years, to get industry, government, and the research aligned on the same page. It's absolutely fascinating how quick we've come to the table on AI, for example. And just in a span of, say, 12 to 18 months, everybody's at the table. So for me, it's creating that table, but there's also having enough dialogue and patience to find the seatbelt. I think you have to be a little careful regulating before that, because we will sort of be locked in to not creating the right solution, right? So I think you have to get the solutions right. I like thinking about AI safety, for example, as a framework with specifics to come as we invent it. And the other thing I like to think about is when we harnessed electricity, military planners thought, oh gosh, we're going to create these weapons on the battlefield that zap people. And that's how they would harness electricity, but that actually isn't how it played out. They harnessed electricity to improve supply chains first. We are trying to imagine what we will do with AI, but the reality is the way we use AI, the way our threat actors use AI, is not something we can actually predict, because the technology has not yet been invented. Every week we have a new release, some kind of breakthrough. So I would say we come to the table, we keep the urgency up, but even more important, we keep the constancy of our watchfulness as we see these things develop and come together to kind of put the safety frameworks in. We're a little bit behind on the foundations of the internet, but actually there are a lot of really great solutions. We know things like security keys are good for passwords. We know things like zero trust networks are better kind of network architectures. I think there we can have really deep dialogue, but on AI, constant watchfulness and dialogue is what we need.
I love that patience and dialogue to find the equivalent of the safety belt. That's fantastic. Thank you. Matt, and then Ichikawa-san.
So there's some great car museums in the West Midlands as well, just down the road, actually. I'm very proud. I started my public service career in Coventry, which most people who I work with in Westminster are slightly confused about. But I worked in the Community Safety Partnership in Coventry, where we did a number of things to tackle crime. You mentioned car crime, and one of the big things that shifted the numbers on car crime was actually car manufacturers designing more secure cars. Likewise, campaigns around burglary were reduced by understanding that if you were burgled once, you were more likely to be burgled again. In the UK, there was a great campaign which really brought awareness to the use of seatbelts, the dangers of drink driving, called the Think campaign. And I've been asking my team to scour public policy problem successes. And actually, there isn't one solution. We can talk about regulation, we can talk about tax, we can talk about campaigns, we can talk about incentives. Actually, we need to do it all. And so bringing all of those things to the table, having the right dialogue with the people who will be implementing these solutions, making sure, as Harry says, that this isn't seen as a cost, the cost of doing cyber, but actually it's core to our business and it's core to our national security and our national prosperity is key. So basically my plea is all ideas welcome, and as we continue to try to keep up with the threat, we're going to have to test and change and adapt, to Heather's point, because the threats aren't going to stay the same.
Thank you, Matt. Ichikawa-san.
Yes. Well, yeah, I'm very comfortable with the discussion we have had. We completely agree we need to come out of the comfort zone to face the growing challenges we are facing. As I said, sea change is happening. So in that sense, we need to come up with something out of the box. I completely agree. On the other hand, as a person coming from the Indo-Pacific, well, let me share with you a little bit about what's going on in the Indo-Pacific. There is a quadrilateral, there is one effort which is called quadrilateral framework among Australia, India, Japan, and the United States. It's a strategic partnership, and under the leaders and foreign ministers framework, there is one working group focusing on cyber. And among us, we have periodical online as well as in-person meeting with regard to the measures on cyberspace. And among four of us, we always discuss how to pressure ourselves, how to pressure our political leaders to come up with innovative measures to compete with the challenges, growing challenges. And then maybe the country like us, like-minded country like us, or the country like the Quad members, are obliged to take the leadership to set the high standard, supported by technologies and the determination of the political leaders and the private companies leaders. On the other hand, one thing we need to have in mind is that we need to create a community, international community, which is really resilient against a cyber attack. In this context, we need to have in mind the developing countries. In case of Indo-Pacific, there are countries, not only developing countries, also emerging countries like ASEAN, or more vulnerable countries like Pacific Islands. And as you know, the Indo-Pacific is a region in which the struggling power balance is severely going on. So in that sense, how to help those countries on the ground, in the region, to level up the awareness of the cyber security. So in that sense, in the framework of Quad, we have intensified the discussion about the capacity building, including human resources development on those countries. That's really important. So how to ensure the basic principle like secure by design to be widely shared with those countries. That's really important. And also another aspect we have been discussing is infrastructure, such as undersea cable or a data center. How to make those basic infrastructure really necessary for ensuring the cybersecurity really resilient and safe. That is another area we need to double the effort to tackle with.
That's definitely leaving us on a cliffhanger. We've got through the first hour and a half of Cyber UK. We've just said undersea cables. There are so many people that will be excited to hear your next sentence. But what a fantastic panel. We have covered everything from transport museums through to password security and zero trust, as well as a whistle-stop tour of the realities of the history of the internet and our different government approaches. But what I'm struck by is a real sense of camaraderie and shared problem space, but the need to work together. And so thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. I'll ask you in a second to thank my panel, but this is the end of the first session. You get a bit of a break now and have a look at the programs to see where you want to go next. Amazing talks on throughout the day. But please join me in thanking my panel. Thank you so much.
There will now be a refreshment and networking break in the exhibition areas, halls 3 and 4. We will see you back here shortly.